to know something I found interesting? In this last week, Ilia Topuria and Islam Makhachev have put some space between themselves. Like just a week ago, I was in New York and somebody asked me, "Hey, Chael, if the White House card was being made right now," which I must tell you is the most annoying topic that I've maybe ever had to deal with in MMA, but the whole White House card, the card in the venue that doesn't exist by the promoter who's not currently licensed on the date that's yet to be determined, that big card. Okay, but I did get asked this: what fight would you do? And the landscape of MMA changes so incredibly fast. But for last week, when I was asked that, the correct answer and the right answer was Islam Makhachev and Ilia Topuria. Now, specifically, you do that fight at 170 pounds so that for marketing reasons, you can evoke the potential of champ status, okay? Now, they finally have something to fight about, these two. These two finally have a reason to fight, which is Ilia, in the absence of nothing, Ilia never getting in the ring, Ilia never getting defeated, Ilia never missing a weight class, Ilia never doing anything, has lost his ranking. He lost his ranking to Islam. They finally have a reason to fight, but the fight's gotten further apart. It's not overly interesting anymore. It's not overly interesting just because you have Kamaru Usman as a possibility for Islam. That would solve that problem. And you have Arman Tsarukyan to take on Ilia Topuria. So there's not a big need. There's not a big need for these guys to fight each other. They both have very compelling work to do. We're not certain as fans that Islam can get over on Kamaru. We're not certain as fans that Ilia can get over on Tsarukyan, and that's all we need. That's all we need to have a business here, is just merely the idea in the viewer's mind of, I'm not certain who would win that fight. Great, put him in the ring, let's have the fight. That's all we need to pop the popcorn, fill up the tent, sell the t-shirts on the way out. But I do find that ironic because they had nothing to fight about a week ago. Now they do. And there's no explanation given for that. The next person to beat Jack Del Maddalena is not going to become the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. But that's what our rankings committee just told us you need to do. The ranking committee just told us that beating Jack Del Maddalena makes you the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. That's a surprise to me. And a surprise to the point that the next time a guy beats Jack, he will not get that same reward. Ilia Topuria did not lose. Didn't even compete. Wasn't scheduled to compete. Didn't miss a fight, didn't miss a weigh-in, didn't turn something down. But had his position taken away by Islam, whose claim to fame was beating Jack Del Maddalena. That's interesting to me. I don't know how important those rankings are to those guys. I've always been surprised when the guys have really got enveloped and spoken out about those rankings that get released on a .com every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Nobody knows much more than that. Nobody knows what committee or what the committee looks like. The whole committee has been discussed being replaced by AI, and it wasn't a joke. Nobody really knows, but I do remember the day that Khabib retired, and Khabib, in his microphone, called out the committee. He said, I've done everything in this sport except be number one ranked pound for pound fighter in the world. Please, this is my last shot. I'm never fighting again, so the next ranking is the closest I'm ever going to get for that opportunity. Please consider and give me that spot. And they did. They literally gave it to him because he asked for it, and John Jones, who had the spot, came out and goes, wait a second. Khabib, great career. I'm very proud of you. I'm very impressed with what you did, but just by asking for the spot, you were giving it over me? That doesn't sound right. And you know what that rankings committee did? They went back a couple weeks later, switched it, and put John back to number one. With How to Fight, they made John number one, and they brought Khabib down. And it was a very interesting thing. And the only thing that I learned about it, like I've never questioned the corruptness of the ranking committee. I've even questioned if there is said committee. The one thing that surprised me, though, was that the athletes cared. And once I found out that they did care, now all of a sudden the committee gains a lot of credibility, a lot of validity. And what do you do in this kind of a spot? Ilia Topuria walked away from the 145-pound title to pursue the 155-pound title, not knowing that Islam was going to leave. Ilia Topuria, when he walked away from 45, believed to be king at 55, he was going to have to beat Islam himself. When Islam decided to leave and go to 170 is where the idea of Ilia versus somebody who ended up being Charles Oliveira came from. But Ilia's sincerity about believing that he could beat Islam to the point that he walked away from a belt, entered a division, and began campaigning through the media for the very opportunity to get in there with Islam, was viewed in such a way that they made him number one pound for pound. When they took the belt off Islam, that's where it made it reasonably impossible to keep Islam number one. Even though Islam had not lost, when they took the belt off him, it's very difficult to make him the number one pound for pound fighter over your own champions. Now, if the rankings committee had integrity, it's exactly what they would have done. If they had integrity, they would have kept Islam at number one. And they would have said, no, we can see who's who. This guy never got beaten. He might not have a belt, but we believe that he will have a belt very soon, and he overall is the best fighter. But they lack integrity, so they gave it to somebody that did have a belt, who was Ilia. And as soon as Islam recaptured that belt, they gave it back to him. Now, that would be a question for the rankings committee, right along the lines of how on earth do you not have John Jones ranked in pound for pound or even in the heavyweight class? That would be something that you would ask this committee, should this committee even exist? But, like it or not, this is the first time that Islam and Ilia actually have something to fight about. Something was taken from Ilia. And in this sport, generally, you get to stand your ground. You only concede the ground that you concede or that somebody can take from you. Neither happened to Ilia, but he lost his spot. He hasn't spoke up about that yet. Perhaps he doesn't know. Perhaps he doesn't care. But it's the first time that Ilia and Islam have something to fight about, and they collectively have chosen to not.